You say most of this abuse is caused by or perpetrated by men of Pakistani origin. The figures that I have seen show that most of this child sexual abuse is actually committed by white perpetrators.
They're not all Pakistani. Plenty of them are white and plenty of them are women on and off. You see women in the group as well.
It's 90% Pakistani men.
Listen, John, nobody is denying that there are grooming gangs in all...
It isn't.
I'm not suggesting it isn't.
It's not all. It's not all, but it's 90 to 95%.
No, it isn't 90 to 95%. It isn't, John. And also, John.
Gangs are.
Also,
the grooming gangs. What they're doing, the drugs, get them involved in drugs and pimping them out. They are done by Pakistani grooming gangs.
Not only.
They have this image of a world that they want to create that is better than the world that we're in, a world that will never exist. You know, communists have always had this idea of a utopia, and that is more important to them than the lives of these young survivors that have been groomed and raped and abused for decades.
Once the truth comes out, this government will fall and the Labour Party will be finished because they traded children for votes, and it doesn't matter how many lawyers they sent to me. They sold children for votes.
Without Elon Musk, I actually think it's impossible to believe that slippery Starmer's degenerate government of the falling United Kingdom, where abortion is now not criminal, even up until the moment of birth, would have been forced to U-turn on launching a national inquiry into the worst scandal in British history, the full-scale cover-up of the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs. Musk, now free of his Trump administration constraints, posted on X, "High time there was justice for the mass rape of little girls in Britain. This moral stain cannot be washed away." But shockingly, appallingly, but almost horrendously predictably, the reaction from the Westminster establishment and corrupted British MSM suggests that's exactly what they're attempting to do. Wash this moral atrocity away. As my friend and former GB News presenter Colin Brazier outlined brilliantly on Musk's free speech platform, listening to some MSM presenters triangulating over their coverage of the grooming story is like being back in Iraq and listening to the deranged regime apologetics of comical Ali. It didn't matter what was happening on the ground. Ali could find a way of defending the indefensible. Indeed, it feels like many of these compulsive liars refused to read the 197-page Casey report, which made clear in very sensitive terms that the issue is indeed Pakistani Muslim men. Case in point one, Shelagh Fogarty of the Labour Broadcasting Company, who, as Basil the Great posted, caller says the majority of grooming gangs are Pakistani men. Shelagh Fogarty says they're not. She continues to try and gaslight the nation with made-up nonsense figures that the Casey report has rubbished already. Her time will come for the part she played in the cover-up. Now, if you don't believe that that is what Shelagh Fogarty did, watch this atrocity, this new clip that I think should finally see her banished from the airwaves.
The whole of the country needs to know that there's gangs of Pakistani men going around targeting young, white, helpless English girls and getting them on drugs and pimping them out to their friends and family and raping them 10 a day, 20 a day.
Listen, John.
Scout clubs and all this stuff. In fact, we know that goes on.
Yeah.
And this is the biggest scandal ever this country has ever known.
But
and if we don't have inquiry, we won't all know.
Do you accept that it isn't just Pakistani men?
In the grooming gangs, it basically is.
No, it isn't. It isn't. Then you, John, haven't been watching the news closely enough.
I have been watching the news. The grooming gangs.
They're not all Pakistani. Plenty of them are white and plenty of them are women on and off. You see women in the group as well.
It's 90% Pakistani men.
Listen, John, nobody is denying that there are grooming gangs in all...
It isn't.
I'm not suggesting it isn't.
It's not all. It's not all, but it's 90 to 95%.
No, it isn't 90 to 95%. It isn't, John. And also, John.
Gangs are.
Also,
the grooming gangs. What they're doing, the drugs, get them involved in drugs and pimping them out. They are done by Pakistani grooming gangs.
Not only. Not only.
Oh, come on. You know what?
That's all I'm saying.
You can't keep whitewashing this subject.
I'm not whitewashing anything, John. The other thing you've got wrong, John, the other thing you've got wrong, is to suggest that this has been happening for 20-odd years only. This has happened for
20, 30 years.
It's happened and 10 years before that, and 10 years before that, and 10 years before that, and 10 years before that. There have always been, John, there have always been predatory men individually 100%. And together who always.
This is a new thing. This grooming gang thing, this is a new thing.
It's really not a new thing.
She is a disgrace. Shelagh Fogarty, this is your lowest moment. Because no one could read that 197-page report. I read every word. No one could read it and take away from it that the issue is women. Or the issue is white men. But of course, this is a line being peddled by the equally horrendous Susanna Reid on Woke ITV's Good Morning Britain.
I just want to ask you specifically, you say most of this abuse is caused by or perpetrated by men of Pakistani origin. The figures that I have seen show that most of this child sexual abuse is actually committed by white perpetrators, but there is a disproportionate amount of abuse of this type committed by men of Pakistani origin. Are you taking issue with that statistic when you say most is caused by men of Pakistani origin? I just think we need to be careful with the terms here as well.
So you might be referring to some police data from 20...
I'm sitting at motorway services.
Oh my God, and we will come to Tommy Robinson in just one moment. The problem is, for our elite class, who have been lying over this issue for years, it's a painful thing to have to admit that they completely missed the scandal, that they got it wrong, that they accused anyone of telling the truth of being racist. Some of them, Shelagh Fogarty, Susanna Reid, just cannot admit that. Then you have James O'Brien. Now, Queen Natalie on X pointed out, you can see the mental torture in his mind as he tries to restrain himself from labelling this caller racist. And I want you to watch for yourself what she was referring to, and you can visibly see the pained expression on James O'Brien's face as he understands that he will forever be on the wrong side of history.
It's difficult to say I disrupted a paedophile ring, but a child disclosed sexual abuse to me, and I reported it, and by the time that everything had been checked and done, we found out that it was a massive family, an extended family group. They all lived in houses next door to each other or across the road from each other, and when the police raided the place, there was the top, you can imagine what old houses are like, terraced houses. The police raided it and they'd knocked through the attics of 4 or 5 of the houses to make a video film studio.
Oh, no.
And so, and the thing was, there were members of staff at the school, when obviously it came out, said, but I taught his cousin. I taught her, it was boys and girls. And it turned out that it was just a massive family group spreading out across the whole city. And they were using family friends. It was as if they had grown up together, the adults.
Yeah.
Had grown up together and knew that this was possible and just extended and extended and extended. It was massive.
He cannot believe what he's hearing, and he knows that he can no longer accuse a caller like that of just being racist. Now, what about over at the fake news agents, where Emily Maitlis recently accused Rupert Lowe for being racist for saying exactly the same thing as the Casey report now has?
Pakistani Muslims raping working-class white underage girls. Do you not think there's an issue there?
I think there is an appalling issue with grooming when it hits any community and any age. We only ever hear you talk about Pakistani perpetrators.
Are you telling me there's no issue?
I'm telling you that you are focusing on Pakistani grooming gangs because probably you're racist and you don't believe that there are white perpetrators of the same crime. Can you deny that?
I am concentrating on it because it's a blot on our national history.
Isn't any grooming a blot on our history?
It has not been properly dealt with.
Isn't any grooming a blot on our history? Why don't you talk about anyone else?
Well, when the fake news agents had Baroness Casey on overnight, they unsurprisingly didn't label her racist. But what frustrated me is that she still played into their left-wing tropes. Watch.
You've got to be utterly responsible with data anyway, but specifically when it's around protected characteristics.
Well, and I know this is difficult, and I think it's really important to be precise about this. And I know that the data is imperfect. One of the conclusions of your report is that the data is imperfect and it needs to be much better. But at the centre of this, the politics of this, the political question, which is constantly prosecuted, we've even seen it be prosecuted this morning from Kemi Badenoch, is that there is a particular problem with Pakistani men and group-based child sexual exploitation.
Has Kemi Badenoch said that this morning?
Well, what I'm saying is that she has been out this morning holding a press conference saying that this has been ignored for political reasons for far too long, and that therefore this is a sort of, it's been part of a cover-up and so on. From what you can see, what does your report say empirically about how accurate that charge is, that there is a particular problem and that this problem is centred around Pakistani men?
So I would just urge enormous caution of the opposition leader making political football out of anything, which, sorry, that's quite a tough thing to say. I just wish people wouldn't, because at the heart of it is the victims and then Pakistani heritage community.
Now, look, Casey's report is brilliant, and it is very, very sad for me that it's clear that she is a member of this elite class who is more concerned about social cohesion than actually admitting that someone like Tommy Robinson was right.
About sort of racism that flows from that is actually a gift to racists. I mean, all of this is a gift to the racists. If good people don't look at difficult issues, bad people will, and even worse people will then exploit them. So, that's my general view of difficult things that I've been asked to look at in life, and this is neither the other. So we established that. And then I thought to myself, or we thought to ourselves, let's go and look at some of the large police forces where they have been, there are sufficient numbers of child sexual exploitation cases of a group-based nature for us to look at, can they collect ethnicity or not? And yes, they can. So that made me even more cross with the central aspects of this, because if you've got two very large police forces and then Operation Stovewood in South Yorkshire able to collect that data, why can't I have that data? Why is a previous Home Secretary or a previous policing minister or the Minister for Equalities, dare I say it, why can't they look at that data and interrogate it if I just get on a train to West Yorkshire and find it?
But to be clear, does the data, such as we have, does it vindicate the idea that has been levelled for some years now, that there is a particular problem among Pakistani men or groups of Pakistani men with group-based child sexual exploitation?
There is enough in the audit of looking at these three areas and the disproportionality in these are fully accurate details to take you to a position of disproportionality. So let's do Greater Manchester for a minute, because I asked them to run two separate data sets for me. We've got live and historic child sexual exploitation, group-based, very accurate, multiple offenders, multiple victims. It is significantly disproportionately Asian and Pakistani heritage.
Okay, so we got there. But the problem is that you've got someone like Lewis Goodall now pretending to care about the facts when he for years has been an activist presenter accusing people like Suella Braverman of all sorts for stating the facts. But first, the great thing about having you here on Outspoken is that I know you're awake to the massive problems with the mainstream media and the disturbing realities that just mean it's impossible to trust the so-called fact checkers who try and dictate the narrative. Now, given we love the news and we do want to be informed, but no longer believe so much of what the establishment gatekeepers tell us, it can sometimes leave us in quite a predicament. But don't worry, I have an amazing solution for you. It's called Ground News. It is the best way to stay informed and cut through media bias and manipulative narratives so you can get the facts for yourself. Now, I use Ground News every day. I have it on my phone as an app and in my bookmarks online on my laptop and my desktop computer because it's become so essential to my daily life. You can see it for yourself at ground.news/outspoken. I've got an amazing offer for you in just one moment. But before I tell you about that, I want to show you this incredible website and app in action. So let's use the shocking story, a story I'm very passionate about, of the incarceration of the UK's political prisoner, the grieving mother and housewife Lucy Connolly, who remains behind bars after one tweet and had her appeal rejected, sparking outrage across the world. Now, you can see in one place 37 sources covering this story, but what Ground News does is instantly show how the story is being covered by the media, broken down by whether they lean to the left or the right. It's called the bias distribution chart. Then, if you scroll down, you can actually see every headline about the story along with the political bias and ownership of the publication. Interestingly and promisingly, in this case, 32% of the sources are independent. Now, the left covered the story predictably. Wales Online flagged her racial hatred. The Daily Mirror went full-on political propaganda with the headline, Tory councillor's wife jailed for tweeting set fires to hotel, loses appeal bid. But the coverage on the right-leaning outlets, far more accurate. Guido Fawkes tapped into the horror of Starmer backing the 31-month sentence for one tweet, and the Daily Express said her incarceration is a moral stain on Britain's justice system. The Spectator simply said, quite accurately, she is in prison because of her politics, while my friend Alison Pearson spoke to Lucy in prison for the Daily Telegraph. Now, my favourite feature of Ground News is the blind spot feed. It surfaces upwards of 20 stories every day that receive the majority of coverage from one side of the political spectrum. So if you love the news like I do, the blind spot feed is the best way to get a balanced perspective on what is happening. So now it's time for the deal. Go to ground.news/outspoken, click on the link in the description box below, or scan the QR code on screen if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, and you will get 40% off the same Vantage plan I use for unlimited access. That's ground.news/outspoken. But now, back to the show.
You asserted that perpetrators of child grooming gangs in the UK were almost all British Pakistani. Now, you had to... That was chastised, wasn't it? Entirely rightly, because it was a false claim.
Well, I disagree with the ruling from IPSO, and subsequent reports and data has shown that to be wrong. Lewis, what you're doing is you're zooming out. You're zooming out and you're looking at it from the broad umbrella.
I put it to you again. You may say you disagree with it. What do you disagree about with the IPSO claim that said that what you said about the clear majority or virtually all of grooming gangs being almost all British Pakistani, when IPSO said to you that what you said was significantly misleading, and the Mail on Sunday had to actually put in a retraction of it? What do you disagree about?
Right. So again, Lewis, so what you're doing is what you always do, which is why you've called it wrong on a lot of political issues in recent months and years. You're fixating on tone. You're fixating on tone. And
I'm not fixating on tone. It's about facts,
so
it's about facts.
I've responded to your question
that what you said was significantly misleading.
I've responded to your question about IPSO, which is I disagree with the ruling. They've based it on a flawed set of data.
Now, I will await the apology from Lewis Goodall, but we'll be waiting forever. Just like we'll be waiting forever for the apologies from scumbag liars Jess Phillips, Owen Jones, and Slippery Starmer too.
Politicians, and I mean politicians, who sat in government for many years, are casual about honesty, decency, truth, and the rule of law, calling for inquiries because they want to jump on a bandwagon of the far right.
About vulnerable white girls being targeted by British Pakistani grooming gangs. Now, that is the sort of thing you would have expected to read in BNP leaflets, and which not that long ago would actually have been condemned by Tory and Labour politicians alike. But we are in 2023 in the worst possible timeline. It's not true. It's really important to make this very, very clear.
Look, people have turned a blind eye. There's I'm not denying that.
Including you?
Absolutely not me. I have never turned a blind eye. I never would shy away from calling a problem what it is.
But what the Casey report has done is expose those scumbags and expose the official narrative while significantly boosting the credibility of those folk who were warning of the scandal for years at great personal cost. Tommy Robinson has responded to this today, writing, "I never wanted to be in a position of saying I told you so. I came out of prison all guns blazing after 7 months in solitary, and in all honesty, it's hit me, and I feel wrecked. I will be taking time with my children for the next few weeks, and the news of the inquiry makes the way I'm currently feeling a lot easier to handle. But whatever any of us has gone through is nothing in comparison to what so many of Britain's daughters were subjected to. The public still have no idea the true scale of this rape jihad. Well done to every brave survivor who told their stories and continue to fight for justice. This rape scandal is the darkest stain ever on Britain." Now, I take no joy in saying this, but the fact that the MSM, the fact that our elite class remain in denial over this scandal proves that we are unfortunately a society in decline. Now, joining Father Calvin Robinson on today's Superstar panel, another one of those brave men who put everything on the line to expose what went on with the grooming gangs, the campaigner, Raja Miah, who has risked it all over this issue. Great to have you both here. Father Calvin will come to you very shortly. But Raja, welcome to Outspoken. So many people have been asking for you to come on the show, and it's brilliant to have you here. I want to get your reaction first, given everything you know, given everything that you have put on the line over the years, and I've watched your many interviews exposing exactly what you did when it came to this scandal. How do you feel when you see members of the elite class like Shelagh Fogarty on LBC, still trying to say that this is actually an issue with white men or with women, and just seemingly denying the reality of the scandal?
They always knew, Dan. Let's be clear. They always knew the truth. And they hid behind these reports, these lies, these fake data sets and the platforms that they had. And they demonized every one of us who simply saw this as children being systematically gang raped on an industrial scale, religiously justified, racially motivated. The scandal should shame every one of us, Dan, because no matter what I did, no matter what Tommy did, Maggie Oliver did, if you ask all of us, we will say we didn't do enough. We should have done more.
Really?
What happened to these children? What happened to children?
But I mean, you tried so hard, and you were a man with great credibility. For people who don't know, you were advised the government in the past, you had an MBE, you're a member of the Muslim community, but yet you were rebuffed so many times, including, by the way, you were rebuffed by the mainstream media, weren't you?
I am, to all extents and purposes, blacklisted from the mainstream media to this day. Not one of them will interview me. To my credentials are what they are, Dan, and they hate it because I am. I do have an MBE. I sat in rooms with multiple prime ministers, advice secretaries of state, 25-year career in safeguarding children and protecting our communities from violent extremists. That's my world, Dan. And
yet you're still blacklisted. Even now, you're blacklisted by the mainstream media.
Worse than that, they falsified evidence, had me maliciously prosecuted, failed case after case collapsed against me. The mainstream media printed lies that had been arrested as part of a child sex exploitation ring myself. All of this happened. All of this was coordinated. The entire machinery of the state has mobilized, not just against me, but against so many of us. And it's to facilitate this cover-up. And what this cover-up is fundamentally about is it goes beyond the grooming gangs. You've got to understand our children were sold as currency for votes. And that's what this goes to. And that's why they're all hiding it. This isn't just another child abuse scandal. and that's as bad as it can be. Our children were sold to certain communities for votes in the main. And secondly, what you've got is this belief in a multicultural utopia that has clearly and comprehensively failed, because
but they can't admit that, can they? They
no,
can't
they, because
admit
that. They will never admit that. They'll take it to their graves. They won't admit that. But and look at me, look at the sort of person I am. And I'm telling you, the multicultural model that these people promoted has comprehensively failed, because they never looked at these communities and said, some of the barbaric behavior and cultural traits that you have has no place here.
Father Calvin Robinson, I mean, when you listen to Raja's story, and then when you actually see the evidence of someone like Shelagh Fogarty, someone like Susanna Reid, still in denial, even actually some of the language that Baroness Casey herself is using about this, it's very difficult to avoid the conclusion that the mainstream media is a huge part of the problem here.
Of course it is, because it's entirely liberal, and liberals are the problem. Facts, evidence don't actually matter to them as much as their utopia that they want to build. They have this image of a world that they want to create that is better than the world that we're in, a world that will never exist. Communists have always had this idea of a utopia, and that is more important to them than the lives of these young survivors that have been groomed and raped and abused for decades. It's abysmal that everything nothing is more important to them than their worldview. And so you can put the girls in front of them, you can put the evidence, the statistics, the demographics in front of them. It doesn't actually matter, because in their head they're saying this can't be true because it'll be racist, and if it's racist it disrupts my worldview of a multi-ethnic, multicultural society of everyone loving each other equally and diversity, inclusion, equality. It may be lovely, but it's not real life. In real life, there is clearly a problem with Pakistani Muslim men, in particular in Britain, grooming and raping and abusing young British girls. And this needs to be addressed. And it can't be addressed if the Liberals continue to want to brush it under the carpet, because it rocks a boat that they do not want rocking.
So how do you respond to that, Raja, as a Muslim man?
Well, I say to you, first and foremost, my lived reality is that not all cultures are equal, and that's my experience, and I believe that to be a fact. Not all cultures are equal. And what I say to you, if you want to put the lens of a Muslim man on me, what I will say to you is this: there is a massive problem within the Muslim community in the way in which it views white culture, white women, white working class girls. There's an added cultural dynamic in this, specifically within the Pakistani community. And Tommy Robinson is right to use the phrase rape jihad. Elon Musk made reference to rape genocide, I think, when he referred to Jess Phillips at one point early in January. All of those terms are right, because that's the worldview. These are racially motivated crimes, and they're religiously justified. They've gone into the scriptures and found the bits that justify their evil. And I am not a scholar. I'm not an imam or any of that type of thing. I'm just a bloke who's trying to raise a daughter and live in a town. And in front of me was put a dossier of evidence by a man who's now departed, Warren Bates, who's passed away. And I looked at him, and he was desperate. And I looked at myself, and I thought, can I walk away from this? And I've come to this conclusion, rightly or wrongly. I don't know, Father Calvin might have a better understanding of it, but this is a fight between good and evil. This is simply a fight between good and evil. And these people are evil, and the people who protect them are just as evil, Dan.
Exactly. And as you say, protect them for votes, which is absolutely in Jess Phillips'
This is 100%.
case.
They are protecting these children for votes. I have got dossiers of evidence that clearly demonstrated that serving government ministers were complicit with BBC journalists in hiding how children in my town were being dragged off the streets, pulled into shisha bars, where they were being drugged and gang raped in rooms that they rented out by the hour. They all knew, Dan. And when Andy Burnham published his report, he tried to hide it, his assurance review, but it's in the report as well. They all knew. And now when cases come along, the reason why cases come along, and I'm overwhelmed by this, Dan, The reason why cases come along is people like me and so many others, and I've lost members of my team. They've died before this came done. This is how long we've been at it. And we were relentless in our pursuit of getting this out. And we campaigned and we campaigned, and no matter how many times they arrested us, no matter what they wrote about us, how, senior politicians in my town have direct links with organized crime from within this Pakistani community. And Charlie Peters did a piece not long ago where he drew a correlation between the heroin trade and the rape gangs and overlapping. This is all organized. It's been going on for such a long time. And if the truth comes out, and we'll continue this till we die if need be done. But once the truth comes out, this government will fall and the Labour Party will be finished, because they traded children for votes, and it doesn't matter how many lawyers they sent to me, they sold children for votes.
And you cannot forgive that. Father Calvin, good versus evil, this battle?
It is a battle between good and evil. The problem is good isn't fighting it, never mind winning it. At the moment, we have all the evidence in front of us that the Pakistani Muslim demographic makes up, 4% of the population in Britain, but 65% of the child sexual abuse and child sexual exploitation. That is a statistic that needs to be addressed immediately. We're having debates about whether we can even have the conversation. I remember when I had my show on GB News, the conversation was about, you can't call them rape gangs, they're grooming gangs. It's like, we're arguing over etymology and language. What we should be arguing over is, how do we deport every single Pakistani Muslim in Britain if there's a clear problem with that particular community that is harming and raping our girls? We're literally allowing people to rape young British girls for what? Not just for votes, for this Marxist utopia. We need to deport every single Pakistani Muslim, block the borders. No more Muslims from Pakistan can come into the United Kingdom. And those that have committed these horrible abuses, these horrible grooming and raping of young girls, need to be hanged. We need to bring back the death penalty for this. This is how good fights back, but we're not willing to do it. We're barely willing to have the conversation. So I don't know how we're going to turn things around.
100%, because the public are always ignored over these issues. Always ignored. Mass immigration, we've been ignored for 60 years. Bringing back the death penalty, specifically, especially if you ask people if it's about a crime like this, a heinous crime like this against a child, is overwhelmingly popular. But very few politicians are prepared to back it, and you have to wonder why. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.